Hi, it's time for us to start Photoshop. So I think most of you have dealt with Photoshop before. If you haven't, there is a chapter called the Photoshop user interface that I would go through if you've never touched Photoshop before. Also, if you've been working through Illustrator, it is very similar in the way it looks and the menus and that type of thing. So if you'd like to go through that chapter just to get yourself familiar, it has a bunch of good information for you. But this week we are going to be making a CD artwork, the outside of the case. And those are about 10 inches by 10 inches. I know most people stream nowadays, but that's what we're going to be making. And the main thing I want to tell you in this video is how to resize images in Photoshop. This is something that you will use all the time. So I kind of wanted to go a little bit deeper into that than the book. So this is the main image that we're going to use for the artwork. One of the things that you can do that I like to do, and this is something you could deal with in preferences if you wanted, but to see how dark or light your interface is, this is a really dark photo. So I was thinking for my video, I needed to kind of change the interface. You can change this here in preferences. And I think that I'm going to go ahead and change it to be lighter because I think it'll show up better on the video. But I also wanted to show you, you could leave it dark like this, and it depends on how light or dark the room you're in. But if you wanted to just change the background behind it, you could right click right here and say, make this say a light gray. And it left all of this stuff dark, but then made right outside what you're looking at, your kind of think of it as your desk. It made it a little bit lighter. Since this is a dark photo. I'm going to go ahead and change my interface. So that was in Edit Preferences, just because I think, like I said, it'll show up better for you guys on the video. Let's do that color. I don't know, that's pretty light. Let's do that one. Okay, so let's get started with what I wanted to show you about this. So a couple of things about the Photoshop interface. You can see it looks very similar to Illustrator. I like to work in two different workspaces, and that's at the same place as you can for Illustrator. I like to either use the graphics and web workspace or the photography workspace. I feel like that gives us most of the tools that we need. For this week, I'm going to use graphics and web. And of course, you choose it right here. You can also go to Window Workspaces, and they are all right there. And you can make your own default that is kind of the way you like it if you want. So this is the main photo that we use, and we don't really know how big it is or anything about it because we didn't take this photo. So the best thing to start is I always like to go up to Image, and I always look at what mode it's in. So this is RGB. Which is, what most photos are going to be in. So I always like to see, is it RGB or CMYK? And then I go to image size, and I can see how big it is. So you can see that this is 68 inches. That's a pretty big photo by 45 inches. And the resolution is 72. Now, I know I taught you before that 300 is the minimum that you can use for print, and this is going to be a printed CD cover, so that's not going to work for us. The main thing that you do, if you have this resample button on and say, well, I need it to be 300, well, all it does is Photoshop is sitting there. You can see it's taking forever. It's sitting there trying. It's going to add pixels to it itself. It's not going to actually fix it. This is not what you want to do. You always want to have this resample button. Okay, it did not. Oh, it's telling me, that is just a huge photo. So yeah, I'm not going to do that Photoshop. It's okay. Always have the resample button off because in fact, I need to cancel it. It did what I just tried to do here. Hold on. Image size, image size. Always have the resample button off because what we're going to do is effective resolution. So this is 68 inches, but as I told you before, a CD is only 10 inches. So we do not need something to be 68 inches. What we really need is to take all of those extra pixels that are making a 68-inch wide picture. Can we not take those and use those pixels to give us 300 pixels per inch? Yes, we can. You leave the resample button off and tell it, I want to use all of these pixels. Instead of using them to make it 68 inches wide, I need to use it here. So I'm going to say 300. And it's telling me, okay, if you want us to be 300, then that means we can only print it 16 inches. That's fine, because as we said, the CD is only 10 inches. So always have the resample button off, and this is called effective resolution. That's how you do it. So I'm going to hit OK. And you'll see that nothing really changed. All we did was we took all those extra pixels and we used them for 300 dpi instead of making a huge, huge photo that we don't need. So that is how to change the effective resolution in Photoshop. Let's look at the other two that they gave us. Lightning. Yeah, see, it's going to be the right size. So let's get one off of the internet. I'm just going to type in here flower. Picture of a flower. So let's say we wanted to use this picture right here. Let me see how I clicked on it, internet, come on. And down here in the bottom, it's telling me this is 500 pixels by 750 pixels. So here's a little cheat for Photoshop. You can just right click and say copy, and then go in Photoshop and say file new, and it's going to remember how big that was. You remember it was 500 pixels by 750? So it's going to remember that because it's in the clipboard. So it'll just create the perfect size, and then you can say Control V for paste, and it'll paste that in there. It's perfect size. So I like to easier way than saving it to your computer. So let's go look at this now. Image size. So most things on the internet are going to be 72 dpi, and you see it's 6 inches. This is not that big. So if I turn off resample and I say I want to use this in a magazine, of course we should not steal images off the internet to use in a magazine. You can use them for schoolwork, but if we were getting paid for this, we should of course deal with copyright, but we're just doing this for class right now. So 300 is telling us we could only print this pretty much 2 inches, which is not very big if we were trying to put it in a magazine or a newspaper. So we would need to get something that has more pixels. So I'll go ahead and tell it that, but that's going to be pretty tiny. So let's go back to the internet. And I like to, one of the things you can do is go to Tools. Let's tell it we only want things that are large. Okay, let's see how big this one is. And when you click on it, sorry, my internet is taking its time today. See, now that says it's 2000 pixels, so maybe that's better. We're going to copy that one. File new. And it remembers how big it is. Control V. So let's see how big we could print this one. If we wanted this to be 300, we're going to turn off resample. We could print this 7 inches by 4 inches. That's a little bit better. So I hope that explains to you how you can do these type of things. Before I go on to the next video, I wanted to show you a couple of things. Control Z works in here just like it did in Illustrator, which is undo. We also have a history panel, which is right here, that will tell you all the different things that you did in Photoshop. So I'm just going to do some stuff. Do you see that it's telling me each thing? So if you find yourself doing something, things are weird and you need to back up, you can always just kind of back up in your history. All right, so in the next video, I'll talk about some ways to select things in Photoshop.